Good morning and welcome to the next installment of our telehealth educational series. This is sponsored by the New Mexico Telehealth Alliance. Before we get too far underway, I just want to go over some housekeeping items. The webinars are being recorded and will be made available on the Telehealth Alliance website. So if you don't want to be recorded, please turn off your camera. And if your camera is on, be cognizant that others can see you. Make sure your computer audio is on and rename yourself if you want to. All attendees will be muted while the speaker is presenting. And please, 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 consistent with all the other webinars we've done so far and will continue to do, half of our time is allotted for discussion. So post some questions in the chat. And depending on their pertinence, they may come in during Gar's presentation, or we'll be discussing them when he finishes his formal comments. Great. And now let me shift and just introduce Gar. And this 10-week webinar series focuses obviously on various telehealth related products and topics. This series is made possible through funding provided by the Health Resources and Services Administration and the Office for the Advancement of Telehealth and the Southwest Telehealth Resource Center. Today's topic is broadband, and we are blessed that Gar Clarke himself is able to do the presentation. For those who don't know Gar, he's a New Mexico Department of Information Technology Geospatial Information Officer, GIO. And Gar, despite his gray hair, is very young and has tremendous background and experience in the broadband topic for New Mexico. He coordinated the development of New Mexico's broadband program that facilitated the deployment of broadband availability and the adoption across New Mexico. He has a great deal of expertise providing coordination, planning, technical assistance, data acquisition, and capacity building assistance to communities across our vast state. He's overseen the development of broadband strategic plans and studies that have focused on statewide implementation, policy considerations, businesses, utilities, education, health, and regional interests. He also coordinates the data acquisition and development of our broadband map that is an important state resource for planning broadband projects. So with all of that, I will also share that I am sitting this morning at Pine Hill Health Center that has great Wi-Fi, but no cellular. So I'm going to keep my phone, my audio muted when people are walking by in the clinic. And Gar tells me that they've been approved for E-rate and they will have fiber optic in the next year, which is really amazing. So with all of that, I am going to turn it over to Gar.
Well, thank you, Beth. Wow, you sure jazzed up that bio for me. Thank you. I feel humbled. Hello, everybody. I'm Gar Clarke, and I do work for Do It. And we're going to go through some slides here and talk about broadband in New Mexico. We'll talk about some technology as well, and some of the things that we've been accomplished, which many people don't realize. There's been quite a bit of activity in the last 10 years since we started developing the New Mexico Broadband Program, which started off with a federal grant, NTIA, National Telecommunications Information Administration grant, about $5 million, which was a 5-year program. And that's how the New Mexico Broadband Program morphed into what we have today. After that money dried out, there was nothing really. And we limped it along through the blessing of executive leadership of the Department of Information Technology. And we were very successful in getting quite a bit done with no cash. And now that COVID has hit us and is upon us, it's really sparked the legislation and this new executive leadership, which is just fabulous and very supportive, into the importance of broadband for communities, for business, for economic development, and more importantly, for families and students. And I'll be speaking a little bit about that. So next, please, Lisa. So we have two offices. One is broadband, and that's the director of that is a woman by the name of Kendra Karp. And she was brought in about 5-6 years ago. And then the other office is Geospatial, and I coordinate those activities. But we work very closely together because the basis for broadband implementation expansion is really, and I'll be a little arrogant about this, it's the map. It's where do we have it, where do we don't have it, and excuse me, and where do, and what kind of whatever we have is out there. So what we do, the purpose of these two offices is to coordinate, collaborate, and leverage, and collaborate through all points of governance, and down to private entities as well, local, tribal. And what's really important is leverage investments, and I'll talk about why that's so important in subsequent slides. The outcome is all these fancy words of integrated statewide implementation of broadband infrastructure. What people tend to forget, and is really coming into focus now, is digital inclusion. Along with digital inclusion, it just simply means digital equity. Instead of those who can afford it getting it, those who cannot afford it need to get it too. So we really need to bring all those things together. So digital inclusion, digital equity, digital literacy are all part of this puzzle. And those are things that we're focusing on as well. So next, Lisa, please. So here's just a very simplified structure of our initiatives, which create the New Mexico Broadband Program. We have BB4R, Broadband for Rural. That's where we're really putting a lot of energy right now. BB for Education, we've done a great job in. We, in 4 years, I walked into Public Schools Facility Authority, had hatched an idea, we got some funding, and in 4 years, we have connected all of our schools to fiber. The problem is, once we completed that, now the schools are empty, and the students are out there. But this is a fabulous project and a good collaborative between the Department of Information Technology, the Public Schools Facility Authority, and the Public Education Department, and also the Education Superhighway, which is a nonprofit that came in and who does fabulous work, and we're working with them now. Same thing with libraries, broadband for libraries. We got $1 million. There's Richard Gouveia there with Joy Pool doing a fabulous job and connecting our libraries to fiber. And I think we have about 60 to 70% of our public libraries attached to fiber at the moment. Tribal, we're doing a lot of work with Tribal, and I'll get into that too. There's another one missing here, but it's something we always think about, is BB4C, C meaning communities. We really, with what we're happening now, focusing is broadband for communities. So next, please. So, and I apologize for clearing my voice, but it's not COVID, it's allergies. So don't worry about it. So, but I find it irritating myself, and I find it irritating. Other people may find it irritating too as I clear. But anyhow, our broadband strategic plan, we just completed that late June. It is touted with other states as being exceptional plan. We're very proud of it, but it's 8 months out now, and it's getting old. But the thing is, it's got good planning in it. And one of the objectives, well, the objectives are identifying areas of underserved or not served. As far as we're concerned, let's say I'm concerned, is when you're not served, is meaning when you do not come up to the 25.3 of what the FCC requires as a minimum speed, and meaning 25, for those of you who may not understand this, 25 megabits per second now, bits per second download, and 4 megabits per second upload, or 3. And so what that means is, just so you know what a megabit is, for those of you who don't know, it takes 8 bits to make 1 byte. And not this kind of byte, but the kind of byte that is a character. So the letter D is considered to be a byte. So you do the mathematics, 25.3 ain't a lot. So we need at least 120 for a family to function, and a small family at that too. So just to note that that's what the speeds are all about. Another thing that we're doing is an underserved is a vacuous kind of a thing, but for me, underserved means that that the service you're getting is not adequate for what you need to be doing. Forget about the number with underserved, in my opinion. So what the strategic plan is all about is providing a funding structure to improve services. The process is leveraging federal and state and tribal, and I'll talk about that, and private resources. We got Eureka from the legislature in 2019, $10 million to assist that we had to spend in 4 years. We've already spent 7 million of that. And we'll talk about where that money went. And also too, we go on out every year, every 2 years, and COVID has kind of screwed up our schedule to get the internet service provider data. As you see in the upper right hand, there's a DSL that the company gave us. If we compare that with what the FCC provides, because they take their data and splash it out to a block group. So you may have a little corner of a block group that it might have DSL or fiber, and it looks like the entire block group, block has it, and census block, by the way. So that's why we go directly to the providers. Not all of them cooperate, but now that we got cash, we're finding that they want to cooperate. So we'll see where that takes us. And then facility infrastructure mapping, and I'll talk a little bit about what that is all about. Findings, we found that 13 to 20% of the homes and businesses within New Mexico are unserved, meaning they don't meet that 25-3 criteria. We have two models. One, we're finding 196,000 of unserved locations that they have no fiber or cable. They have DSL, but a lot of times DSL, like I have DSL, and I'm not up to 25-3. So, so if I go dark on you, that's why. And by the way, the company is CenturyLink. We have two models here and also to fix it, there's some analytics associated with it. So big formula, very smart thinking coming out of the strategic plan, but it's going to take $2 to $5 billion to fix, to get everybody served within the state of New Mexico. A lot of cash, so we can't do it alone. The Model 2 is a little bit less of a lift, 126,000. These people have no fiber, no cable, yet they have access to fixed wireless and DSL. That's going to be a lift about $2 to $4 billion. Part of this too, which is not right, and we'll talk about this, what that means later, but these are areas too that are not in a federal award area. And I'll speak to what that means and the difficulties surrounding that. Lisa, please. So the strategic plan, we divided up the state. We identified project areas within the state based upon a density. This density is about unserved locations, i.e. addresses. We were very fortunate in the state of New Mexico that our New Mexico 911 program has a monthly update of addresses from local government. There are about 95 providers out there, from the small villages of like Chama all the way to Albuquerque, that provide data through the New Mexico 911 program. Was at one time overseeing all the geospatial stuff of that. We gave it back to DFA after we made it whole again. And so it's a real great functioning program that DFA has oversees right now. But we have about 1 million of these addresses, which are on buildings, by the way, not just on the road. So there's a very great analytical suite of data that we can utilize. So that's where the unserved locations come back. Then we have street miles, which also comes out of New Mexico 911 data. A lot of analytical functionality with that kind of stuff. Passings per mile, that's about the density. Passings meaning in 1 mile you pass 10 of locations or 100 locations. Now 100 locations are going to be an easier lift financially. So we call that a high density, medium density, low density. So there's price tags associated with these project areas. And just to note, all of these are on our map too. So you can look at these things. That's what that lower left-hand corner looks at. So, and those dots there are unserved locations. They are addresses that we've identified don't meet 25.3. Put the word potential in front of it because these have not been validated in the field, but it gives us a good planning tool. So Lisa? And then federal resources. Folks don't realize that we got a lot of cash coming into this state from federal sources. They're given straight to the ISPs. We need to hold their feet to the fire and say, what have you done with this cash? And when you look at USAC, E-rate, healthcare, and I mentioned schools, I'll just focus on the schools, but also there's health and libraries associated with USAC. But we brought in 4 years, $66 million of federal funds, and it costs the state $6 million. So that's what I mean about leveraging federal funds. That's a great return on investment, by the way. So also Connect America funds, what are called CAF1 and CAF2. And I won't go into the detail of that, but we've got a total of $145 million that are to be given to ISPs to make whole these areas. The CAF1 is 10.1 when we go to speeds, as far as the old FCC upload and download speeds, and then the CAF2 is 25.3. So in the map down below, you see the coverage we have where these vendors, these ISPs are supposed to bring those areas up to those speeds. Look at the coverage here. And we really need to start monitoring this and tracking this. And I've asked them for their plans. We can't get them. USAC provides the money, which is what FCC provides money to this USAC, which is a kind of a quasi-governmental thing. And then they're the ones that dole out the cash to the ISPs. They also do the Lifeline, if you're familiar with Lifeline. So, but also RDOF, which is new. But it's really called CAF3 under the belly here, but politically they had to give it a different name. So 16.5 million, and that just hit us. The problem is the CAF money, they've got to spend it in 6 years. So it's kind of like you have an area locked down for 6 years. The RDOF, they've got 10 years to spend that money. So, you know, if you're a business or something, you're waiting, and all of a sudden at year 9, so we really need to do something about that. And that's one of our focus areas to get cooking on this to say you can't lock down an area for that long and have competition not to come on in and say we could do it next year. So get out of the way. And then the Reconnect funds, which is another great program from USDA. We have 23.4 million coming in the state of New Mexico. So the map here shows, and this is on our online map if you want to take a look. So if you're in one of these areas, you've got customers or patients, I would say knock on the door, because we've listed all of the companies there. I'd knock on their door and say, hey, what are you doing? And I also noticed that part of the planning, we have mapped all of your medical and healthcare. We would like to validate that for those of you in the health community to make sure we got it all. So next, please, Lisa. Funding sources. Now we have state sources, and Department of Information Technology, as I said, we got 10 million bucks. We spent some of it on that strategic plan I mentioned, it, some of it on the mapping contract that we have with their data analysis center out of UNM. Been working with them for many, many years. They're fabulous. And it's a public to public kind of a thing. So as far as we all own the data and the data is public. And then Coche de Pueblo, through COVID emergency, we gave them almost $3 million, and they're actually bringing fiber to their homes out there as a result of this project. So it's great. Sierra County, we provided some matching funds for Sierra County of 2.1. They put together a beautiful plan, and so they got some federal dollars. We're matching that federal dollars and leveraging that. So Sierra County is starting to build out, oh God, I think 4,000 or 5,000 homes. Carlsbad, JAL, 1.1 million too. And a lot of that is backhaul, meaning the big pipes to get out into the communities and connect communities. $3 million bucks we're legislated. We're giving that as match funds to Navajo Nation to leverage 47 million E-rate project out there that was just approved last week or maybe the week before. So we're really excited about this. And it's we've been working together with Arizona. So it's a two-state kind of a thing. The Arizona side is like, well, 13 million or so. But the return on investment, we have 3 million, but it's only going to cost us, I think, 2.2 million to leverage 47 million. So you see the importance of leveraging federal dollars. So also that $2 billion lift can be a little lighter if we keep on working this mechanism. Excuse me. So another thing too, with the project in Navajo Nation, you'll notice this map here I have on the right, which comes from Rama down into, well, Beth is in that area, which is Pine Hill. And so this is part of that project. So where Beth is sitting right now, she's going to have fiber in about a year. So that's the fiber route for that particular run, which is a little separate. So we're very excited about this. We also got an EDA grant, the Economic Development Administration grant, 1.5 million bucks. This is going to be used to help all of you in technical assistance for local and tribal entities. It's difficult for us because of anti-donation to help directly ISPs or private companies, which is something else we're working on as far as a constitutional amendment. The thing is that this grant, and we're not set up yet. So if you're COG, if you're a nonprofits, I believe, will be qualified. If you're local government, we will help you write a good grant so you can leverage federal money. And then any monies that we get from the legislature, which we're hoping we will get, then we can utilize that. Once you have a successful grant, we can utilize that for match to apply to it. So we're very excited about this EDA grant. Not all of it will probably go for technical assistance. Some of it might be going to developing a strong framework, and because depending on how much money we get from the state. So there's also another project called which is the New Mexico Public Regulatory Commission Broadband Program. Annually, they push out a minimum of $5 million, and that goes straight to the ISPs for projects throughout the state. So if you got an ISP out there, push them to, go, but usually it's like, I get the tier 1, tier 2, but these are ISPs. It comes from your surcharge, by the way, when you on your phone bill or your cell bill. And so it can navigate around the anti-donation because essentially, well, it's our money, but essentially they're the ones, ISPs are the ones who then calculate it all out and give it to PRC under what's called the RUS, the Regulatory Universal Service Fund for New Mexico. 97 projects in the last, I think, 3 years. So another cool thing. Please, Lisa. And this is another big deal, the USDA funding. I talked about the Reconnect program, but also too, there's this distance learning and telemedicine infrastructure, which probably is a big interest to you all. These were new awards for Fort Lewis, Santa Teresa, Ben Archer, and New Mexico Highlands University. Distance learning, telemedicine, Santa Teresa Clinic. I think part of it was they can purchase 6 telemedicine carts that can be distributed out to clinics. So these are the center hubs, evidently. Fort Lewis is in Colorado, but they'll be moving services out to San Juan County here in New Mexico. Same thing, Santa Teresa, they'll be feeding a bunch of clinics in Doña Ana, Socorro Union, again, Ben Archer, Doña Ana, Luna, Otero, Sierra, and then Highlands University, which I think is exciting, Las Vegas and Mora. So keep your eyes on this. This is funds that USDA has, and this new administration is going to expand on the availability of those funds. But also, you see on the right there, they're inviting comment on final ruling. One of the things that pushes people away from federal grants is that they're really complicated and they take a lot of resources. Some of them, people spend $20,000 on a consultant to get it ready for them, some 40. So they want to simplify the rulings. So that's a good point. So Lisa? I'm just not going to get really into this, but I find it fascinating that all of a sudden we have these vendors coming up with new technology to reach the home. We are looking at all of these. We, meaning do it with other agencies, primarily PED, because of getting services into this home for students. Motorola has some called Nitro, which is what's called CBRS technology on steroids. So it has 1 mile radius. It has a core that we're looking at. It's kind of expensive. We're looking at proof of concept, but it is really about getting it into the home to the students. And the reason why we're fascinated with the students is one, it's a need, but more importantly is that that's how we can penetrate through the anti-donation clause. There is something in our statute says anti-donation does not apply towards education. And I think it requires, I think, a mandate from the governor or something like that. So that's how we can wiggle into the home, is through that. So that's why we're looking at these different technologies in order to make that happen. Speed is a problem, though, with a lot of these things because it's shared. Wi-Fi, as you know, what that is. There's some called Air Fiber, Google, but oh my God, it's expensive. And so we may be dropping that. We'll see what we do. But other companies called Lockheed, who are providing free Wi-Fi pretty much for communities. Optipulse is the guy who invented it, who's like 8 feet tall, very intelligent guy, a graduate from TVI, created this laser, which has it runs on LiDAR, so laser pulsing is what it is. And then there's also these interesting ideas like Sky is a company that economic development is looking at. It's emerging technologies. R&D is my personal thing is that we should be spending our money on getting fiber in the ground and getting services directly into homes rather than investing in R&D, especially at this moment. But it's an interesting thing where they bring up LTE or wireless to a balloon at 60,000 feet up there, dirigible actually, and then it spews it back down into the home. So it's a better idea than the retired Air Force folks who said, if we put eight planes up in the air for 24/7 with pilots, we can also cover the state of New Mexico. So I don't know, everybody's on it. And then Cisco has something called fluid mesh. So next, please, Lisa. We're also looking at satellite. There's a lot of reasons for that. We've got analytics associated with clusters, those areas out there that there's no chance in heck within the next 5 years they'll have any coverage. So we're looking at satellite. So we're working with satellite companies such as Viasat and HughesNet, and as you all been talking about, Starlink. And so we're looking at that technology as well. This Starlink looks pretty cool. Their constellation isn't here yet, but they're wanting to pick up customers to see what cells they can light up first at a priority option. And so we'll see what happens, but it's pretty easy because it comes in a pizza box and anybody can set it up. And they're guaranteeing 120 as far as speeds are concerned. And we've interviewed some folks up in the northwest, and they're very happy with it, and they're getting good service from it. So next, please. Analytics, I won't go into a lot of this, but we have a lot of analytics going on, which is geospatially based. Unserved students is what we're looking at. We, under FERPA law and non-disclosure agreements, we've got student data. We're geocoding all the students and finding out where they are, then mashing them up with disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged students to see where we need to be prioritizing our efforts, and got a lot of engineering associated with things as far as logical designs are concerned. Just a note, we have a speed tester that we've been running for about 10 years. And what we're doing, if you look underneath that survey or above that survey, is that we've mashed the UCLA speed tester into the survey instrument, piloted with Penasco schools, and now we are at the point of developing questions to launch it statewide with a pilot in Doña Ana County that will stratify the questions, not only where you are, because where is so important. Speed testers don't tell you where. They will tell you where within 10 miles, but you need an address or point on the maps or something nearby. That's what this survey will do. Then in this homework gap team that we've developed, we brought in AARP, and their questions will sectorize. One with, are you residential? Are you a student? Are you a business? Or are you a senior citizen? Because a lot of our senior citizens are taking care of grandkids. And that's a big, when we look at digital equity, we really need to bring them into the cluster as well. We have wireless signal strength maps that we've done. That one there you see is T-Mobile. In the green, it's they say they have good signal strength. It would be great to get that kind of cooperation from AT&T, Verizon, and others. But you can type in your address, because we have all these in spreadsheets. You type in your address and get an idea of what the signal strength for these folks would be. We've done it for others as well too. So there's a lot of analytical tools that are out there for all of us in order to make a better better. So if you look at telehealth and you got AT&T or others, we have data that can give you a better idea of what kind of device or hotspot device to provide to your client. So next, Lisa, please. And then we have a lot of analytics associated with towers. So we have infrastructure that we've all mapped that includes all the towers within the state of New Mexico. Well, not all, but as many as we could find, over 12,000 towers. These just show the state towers. We have about 104 of those. And with that, we modeled out from our towers, given that if we have fiber on those towers, can we, with a 10-mile buffer, how many students can we get, for example? But be thinking about this too, because you're all in telehealth. These are thinking about these are patients or customers as well. These same kind of analytics can be applied to, given under non-disclosure because of PPI and all that kind of stuff. But these are the kinds of things we can help you with, by the way, in identifying need. And because location is really important. Then you can get devices out to these folks, and some of the devices are really cool. You know, well, by the way, just putting the device on and with a Bluetooth to measure blood pressure and oxygen level and stuff like that. So through your smartphone, and all of those there are out there and available. And I know the MCOs are looking at spending some money. That might be something that you could cash in on assisting. So next, please, Elisa. And then unserved, our strategic plan, as I said, those areas in gray are 126,000 dots that do not meet the 25.3. So we got some work to do. As noted too on the right, plucked from that are those areas that are 31,000 that really only wireless can get to them. So these are the clusters we're looking at for some such things as satellite, but also for wireless technologies. And then I note there too the unserved communities. So, and then numbers associated with that too. Next, please. And we're also looking at Colonias, or really those areas that are economically challenged, which also includes census rural areas. These are all part of the puzzle. So we also have census data, but it's not on our map that shows where poverty is, where you know the economics there's stress out there. So we're able to mash all that together and look at prioritizing, given that digital equity is really important. So so that's part of what we've been looking at. So next. Online mapping tool, we've got a map, as I said, and before, it's a lot of information on there. we went into a big deal right when the COVID hit, and we grabbed public hotspots from ISPs. We brought in a nonprofit who installed over 150 of these things free of charge. They walk away, and the facility owns it. We also, so we've got about 550 of those, and they've been very, very good. But wow, when it got cold, it's hard to sit in your car with a heater on, especially when you can't afford gas. So, and you got 3 kids in the back. So that's the kind of thing we're dealing with. Coverage by technology type, as I said, that's what we grabbed from the provider, which is better data than the FCC, but it's gotten a little stale now. We've got to get moving on doing that. So next month, I want to get that going. Public facilities, we've mapped over 5,000 of those. So that's where your medical facilities that we've mapped, but also government buildings, law enforcement, libraries, schools are all part of our map, because those are CAIs, as they're called, or community anchor institutions, which those are the areas with a big wallet, let's say, that can get fiber too. And on the way there, if it's E-rate or whatever, we can lay extra conduit and then light up the community. So that's why those are important to have on the map. Address points, as said, we got about 1 million of those from 911. Funding areas, we mapped those. I showed that. Economic opportunity zones are areas of interest to light up. Rural designated areas, telecom resources, as I said, the towers, unserved location, wireless locations, etc. So there are also tools of that, which are measurement tools for linear measurements as well as area. I have, 1 mile there showing on the map there, because that's the radius of what this Wi-Fi on steroids for CBRS, and we're doing some analysis to look at that. It's got a great speed. Well, the speed tester, as I said, is there. Map maker. You can type in your address or Roy, New Mexico, and it'll go there, as well as base maps where you can look at it with imagery, like I show here, or other base maps with topography. So, and note there too, where I have Casa Gil data bank. This is the first time ever in the state of New Mexico where all of these facility data are in one place, and that are brought from all kinds of different areas. So Lisa, next. Oh, I'm gone over. So I think we're almost done. Broadband for health. Essentially, we've mapped your clinic, so we want to get some validation there. We really need to do a better job on health. I know New Mexico Telehealth Alliance has done quite a bit in the Healthcare Connect arena. But as far as the state is concerned, my personal opinion is that we need to get cooking on healthcare and getting that cash from USAC, from Healthcare Connect, and leveraging it. And so now that we're going to get some money, we have some capacity to leverage that on all of your behalf. So you need a Department of Health for their data. Terry Risser, some of you know, work with him. Consortium opportunities, collaborate with health constituencies, like I said, the MCOs and others. And the where, I'll just say, the where is so important. You can geolocate your patients. You can also, I'll have to move that so I know what I wrote. Geolocating patients and aligning services, devices, as I mentioned later. And a lot of these analytics that we're doing for students as well as for others can be applied to your discipline as well. So next, please, Lisa. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gar. We do have a few questions for you.
Okay.
One question was the maps and the slides that you had about halfway through. Is there a link to them, or would that link you have up there on the screen? Is there a link to them, and so that people could see their original format and see them a little bit better?
Yeah, all of those were screen grabs from the map that's online, and it's a public map. And the broadband portal, that's one way you can get at it, that you see on the screen. Okay. But if you notice on the lower right-hand side of many of the slides, it has the exact URL that goes to the map itself rather than through the portal here.
Okay, okay, and we can send those out.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, the slides are, get them out to anybody. Okay. I would suggest the PDF because the other one, I was surprised how big it is. So
Yeah,
the
for
PowerPoint.
sure. And then another question is that there is a great deal of federal attention on broadband right now. It- um, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on how that might benefit New Mexico?
Oh, definitely. You know, there's this $1.7 trillion package that's that the House wants to bring out, our congressional side, and then the Senate side wants to bang it down to 1.3 trillion. I think that's what the numbers are, but a portion of that will be going to broadband. I think it's 1.2 billion. I screw up on all these numbers, but then the state of New Mexico is going to get quite a bit of cash, and it's called the EBB, which is the Emergency Broadband Benefits Package, and I think we're going to be getting about $423 million. We need to be ready for this. That's why we're bringing in education superhighway. So part of this, it's got about 4 components to it, and I won't go into all the detail, but really part of it would be that for families that meet who are economically challenged, maybe they might be on SNAP or a free and reduced lunch or things of that sort, they'll get $50 a month to go to their MRC meaning their monthly recurring costs.
Mhm.
Tribal folks will, if they're on tribal property, will get $75 a month. That's one of the components of what can support it. There's also funds in there, and those funds go to the ISPs though. And there's some funds that also go to that will go directly to the ISPs to buy computers, and that is subsidized at $100. What I'd like to do is, I'm talking to PED right now, what we'd like to do is to set something up there, because we think the ISPs will not go for that. But if we broker that $100 and then also bring in other money to support it, I think we've got more of a solid programmatic support in order to provide Chromebooks to students that are out there, given that they have connectivity. And that's another part too. CARES Act money is coming through. I think we got another 1.7 million or something that's going to be coming through versus we had, oh no, 5 point, more than that, 17 maybe. I don't know. Don't quote me on any of these numbers, by the way. Okay, please. But also too, we got a load of money. I think it was 5.2 million of CARES Act fund that came through the governor's office, which translates into something called GEAR, which is the governor's education emergency fund. No, the R stands for relief fund, GEAR. And so those monies are being released to the school districts now based upon a portal that we built. We reached out to the ISPs saying, these are the addresses of students under an NDA that need help. And so they came back with proposals, offers saying that they can, and what we gave them some criteria, said, can you light them up in 10 days? And if so, what kind of technology? And if so, how much? And what equipment costs, as well as MRC. And so the schools are spending that money right now. So we created a shopping list for them, which is under a passcode protection for each of the school districts that are participating. So there's a lot going on, but again, it's all about education, but it's a way to penetrate communities through that. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer to it, but there's a lot of promise of cash on the table, and that the focus is on education.
Okay. Another quick question. One of your slides used the term Colonias.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Colonia, they're only found in California, Arizona, and New Mexico, and they are blessed by the U.S. Census Bureau as areas of infrastructure need, and they're primarily immigrant populations
Okay.
that are economically challenged. They don't have borders. However, the Census Bureau has made borders based upon the folks that live in there. So those are areas that we're focusing on. Some of the areas include La Mesa, Chamberlain, and up north, San Miguel, down in the southeast part of the state. And of course, what the Colonias, I think Deming is one too, come to think of it.
Gar, if I might.
Yes.
So I'm from Doña Ana County, and my medical school project was around the Chaparral Colonia.
Oh yeah.
And so there's a lot of work that's gone on both internally via the state, as well as through organizations like the Kellogg organization. The Clínica de la Familia system also serves those colonias. It's a very important population to do outreach to because they have very high healthcare needs and lots of risk, very poor infrastructure, all the way down to water. I mean, we take for granted the access to running water. They don't have electricity, water, much less internet. So doing any specific outreach to those populations would be invaluable.
That's good to note, and where we can help, let us know, because I mean, for good reason, there's a lot of emphasis on tribes, but people don't realize that we have other parts of the state that have absolutely no infrastructure. And when you talk about water, people think that's a given. It's not.
Yeah, we're informal tribes down in the Colonias. I'm from Chamberino. And so working in communities with other things like the Acequia projects, the Elephant Butte water organization, setting up individual water boards. My mom has been the chair of the water board down in Chamberino. Those are all things that work together, as well as access to early childhood development. So working with groups like La Clínica, the Promotora project down there on the southern border, with individual water boards to make sure that we provide not just internet access, but some of these fundamental infrastructure needs in those informal tribes, otherwise known as colonias.
Yeah.
Well, also too, if there is a way to get some backhaul into any of these areas you're talking about, and that's why we're looking at San Miguel, because there's a fire station there, I believe. And then I think La Mesa, there's a school building, early childhood education building that has backhaul. We are looking at providing what's called mesh technology to where we hop so that we can get Wi-Fi into the homes, not with a Wi-Fi router, but it would penetrate into the home so that they'd have public Wi-Fi. We could put SIPA filtering on it too, so the kids can use it and not go in places they shouldn't be going. So if you have a cluster of something like that, let me know. We're looking at projects now.
Yeah, Gar, I can certainly connect you with the various water boards and the NMSU and the branch programs for early childhood development, because they do home visits and community visits to all of those areas. It's a good entree, as well as through the Promotora project, because these are trusted community members that already enter these communities. It's a much better way to enter to them, to bring them services, rather than us English only speakers that live in northern New Mexico.
Yeah, and that's part of what our outreach is all about. We're like Oz is behind the veil, but the locals need to handle that front end. So good point. Thank you.
Gar, I appreciate Denise Gonzalez speaking for Southern New Mexico, and I'm obviously in Western New Mexico in Pine Hill today and spend a lot of my time in Gallup. And you probably know that Gallup McKinley Schools literally drives its buses that have Wi-Fi out to different locations, and the students park or sit around the bus to have, they do not sit on the bus, they sit outside of the bus to have Wi-Fi to do their schoolwork. And which is, in the winter is sort of a problem. And
Yes.
we very much appreciate this presentation today. You've obviously been involved with the Telehealth Alliance since its inception, and you are an unofficial essential board member. As a state employee, you can't be a board member, but you're very active, and you present to the board often. There is so much going on. What do you need from us as people on this call and people who listen to this webinar later and watch it later? What do you need from us? And two, can you speak again in a couple months? Because this is such a dynamic environment. We want to both stay up to speed on what's going on and be able to contribute and support your success, because it's everybody's success, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Beth, and it's been lovely working with the Alliance. I mean, what a bunch of smart people. So for your last question, yes, I'd come back. And the first question is really, what do you want from me? Is really to back at you. We're looking for areas of need. If you can help with that, because many of you, like was mentioned, the previous woman, is that you know your communities. And so if there's area of need, so we'd like to identify those and see how we can provide better services out there. A second thing that at some point, I want to make sure that our data is correct. So I'm getting from Terry Rooser all of his clinics, and I'd like to export a spreadsheet of all of our data, because we haven't re-upped it in a while, and for the Telehealth Alliance and everybody involved to validate those data, or to give me your data and we can validate it. We can do the heavy lifting. So, but really it's about identifying need. We're going to have some cash and we want to spend it wisely. There was a group out there that we were looking at some technology to light them all up, and then we realized that it was an incredibly wealthy community. There are politics behind it, so we went, well, no, this is, they can afford to bring it out. So, so we want to make sure we make good decisions. Are there any other questions?
Anything else from folks who are participating today? Okay, it is early work.
Beth, I'm sorry, I just wanted to mention that this infrastructure helps in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, in terms of behavioral health, and so many other things that I think that it's important for us to keep a very open mind and not consider it in any narrow fashion, because it should be anything is possible type of approach.
Yeah, you know, Denise, that's a good point. And I wish the federal government would understand the concept of holistic or comprehensive. And when you look at the USAC funding, as many of you might know, the E-rate has money funneled for schools only, money funneled for libraries only, and money funneled only for healthcare, when really we need it to be the concept consortium needs to happen with all three. And each one of them has its own formula, which is like stupid. I just don't understand, like healthcare clinic based upon, it's just a flat 65%. We come up with 35% match. Libraries, it's based upon square footage. My God, who invented that one? Now, schools is good because it's based upon free and reduced lunch, and it's a percentage based upon the level of poverty. So that needs to be extrapolated to all three. And you should be able to apply with one application for all three, so we can think comprehensively. So that's just my opinion, by the way.
Thank you, Gar. And I completely agree. It is absurd. We've tried to, from the Healthcare Connect side, because of the consortium we operate, the USAC approved consortium we operate, we've tried to work with education, and there's certainly interest in the state to do it, but the feds don't allow it. So in this, you know, this creative workaround, really, to do the right thing, kind of absurd. So it is coming up at the close of the hour. Gar, I want to thank you again. Sorry, there's some background people here. It's early March, so we're going to ask you back in early May. We're going to take you up on your offer. And I just want to point folks to the upcoming webinars. We have them running through the end of March. And actually, it looks like we're going to have funding to continue them at a slightly different pace through the end of the year. And next week, you'll get to see me in Stetson again. I'll try and get my hair a little better, and this looks great. And we'll be talking, giving people an sort of a simplified version of New Mexico's telemedicine's telehealth statute. And of course, Steph and Angelica are going to be doing the talk on the 17th on telehealth claims and what happens next, a deep dive from the data side. Okay. Thank you all for your time today. And again, this webinar will be posted, archived on the Telehealth Alliance website. So for friends who missed it or who want to see it again, that's where you'll find it. Lisa, when will it be up? Lisa,
within 48 hours.
Within 48 hours. Okay. Thank you all. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Have a great day. Thank you,
Appreciate the
Gar. That was
opportunity.
fantastic.